Most businesses don't slow down because of lack of effort. They slow down because key decisions were never fully made. "We'll figure it out" sounds like flexibility, but structurally, it creates instability because every undefined decision introduces friction, and that friction compounds before leadership even recognizes it. In many organizations, especially founder-led or growth-stage businesses, there is a consistent belief: you don't need full clarity to start. You can define things as you move. So execution begins early. Projects are launched before scope is fully defined. Ownership is assumed, not clearly assigned. Success criteria exist, but are interpreted differently across teams. At the surface level, this feels productive. There is visible momentum. Teams are active. Work is being delivered. From a leadership perspective, it looks like progress. But over time, the system begins to behave differently. Conversations repeat. Teams revisit the same decisions. Outputs vary depending on who executes. Deadlines begin to slip without a clear root cause. Leaders get pulled into decisions that should not require their involvement. At this stage, most companies misinterpret what they are seeing. They assume the team needs better communication. The team needs more discipline. The team needs more accountability. So they respond with additional layers. More meetings, more reporting structures, more oversight. But these actions don't resolve the issue, because the issue is not communication. It is structural. At its core, this is not an execution problem. It is a sequencing problem. "We'll figure it out" is not a neutral statement. It is a decision to delay clarity. And when clarity is delayed, execution begins in an incomplete state. This creates misalignment across three critical dimensions: decision timing, execution readiness, operational capacity. When execution starts before decisions are fully defined, teams are forced to interpret. And interpretation introduces variability. Each person fills in gaps based on their own understanding. Each team aligns to a slightly different version of the objective. Each output begins to diverge. Initially, this divergence is small, but as work continues, it compounds. This is when organizations begin to experience rework cycles, conflicting outputs, decision reversals, increased escalation. Execution becomes reactive. Instead of applying direction, teams are constantly adjusting. Instead of progressing forward, they are correcting sideways. The flawed assumption is that clarity will emerge naturally through execution. But execution environments are not designed to create clarity. They are designed to produce output. Under pressure, teams prioritize movement, not alignment, not precision. So instead of generating clarity, execution exposes ambiguity. And once ambiguity is exposed, the organization absorbs the cost. Time is spent realigning. Energy is spent correcting. Leadership attention is spent resolving issues that should not exist. What was initially avoided as slowing things down becomes the reason everything slows down later. To eliminate this pattern, organizations must shift how they approach execution. Execution is not where decisions should be made. Execution is where decisions should be applied. This requires structural discipline across three areas. 1. Definition precedes execution. Execution without definition forces interpretation, and interpretation introduces inconsistency. Before work begins, 4 elements must be clear. What is being done? Why it matters? What success looks like? What constraints exist? Without these, teams operate on assumptions, and assumptions create divergence. Clarity up front is often perceived as a delay, but in reality, it is what prevents downstream inefficiency. Because without definition, every stage of execution includes hidden clarification. That clarification may not be visible immediately, but it accumulates over time, and accumulation is what creates drag in the system. Organizations that define before executing remove that drag early. 2. Ownership enables decision flow. Unclear ownership is one of the most consistent causes of slow execution. When ownership is undefined, decisions stall. People hesitate to act. They seek validation. They escalate unnecessarily. Or multiple individuals take action without alignment. Both scenarios reduce efficiency. Clear ownership defines authority. It answers a simple but critical question. Who decides? When this is clear, decisions move faster. When it is not, decision-making becomes fragmented. Ownership is not about assigning tasks. It is about enabling flow. It ensures that decisions can be made without unnecessary friction. 3. Completion criteria defines speed. Speed is often misunderstood. Most teams try to increase speed by increasing activity, but activity does not create speed. Clarity does. When completion criteria are clearly defined, teams understand what done actually means. This reduces rework second-guessing, inconsistent outputs. Without completion criteria, teams optimize for motion. They stay busy. But busy does not create progress. Progress comes from aligned execution, and alignment requires clarity. If this pattern continues, the organization becomes heavier as it grows. More people are added. More projects are initiated. More coordination is required. But instead of accelerating, the business slows down, because every additional layer increases coordination cost. Leaders become the default point of alignment. Teams rely on leadership to resolve ambiguity. Execution becomes dependent. At scale, this creates a structural bottleneck. Growth becomes constrained not by opportunity, but by internal capacity to coordinate. This is where many organizations plateau. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack effort, but because their system cannot support increased complexity. In contrast, organizations that define before they execute operate differently. They reduce coordination overhead. They increase decision velocity. They create consistency across teams. And most importantly, they remove dependency from leadership. Execution becomes more predictable. Outcomes become more consistent. The organization gains leverage, not by doing more, but by needing to fix less. There is a second-order effect that most organizations overlook. When teams operate in environments where clarity is consistently delayed, behavior begins to change. People become more cautious. They wait for direction instead of taking initiative. They avoid ownership because expectations are unclear. Over time, this shifts the culture. Not intentionally, but structurally. The organization becomes slower, even if individuals are capable, because the system does not support decisive action. In contrast, when clarity is consistently defined upfront, a different pattern emerges. Teams move with confidence. Decisions are made closer to execution. Leadership intervention decreases. The system begins to scale independently. This is the difference between a business that grows in size and a business that grows in capability. Most companies achieve the first. Few achieve the second. And the difference is structural clarity. High-performing organizations are not defined by how well they react during execution. They are defined by how little they need to react at all. Because when clarity is established before action, execution becomes a process of applying direction, not searching for it. If this perspective resonates with how you think about building and scaling, you can subscribe, like, or share your thoughts below for more content like this.